The Last Stop, Episode 2, Passengers Without Past. The snow of November had melted, leaving behind muddy tracks and frozen patches along the old Northland rail line. Agent Henry Caldwell returned to the scene of the Northland Express's disappearance, though the tracks themselves offered no answers. Local authorities had cleaned up, families had dispersed, and the world moved on as if nothing had vanished. But Henry knew better. The train hadn't disappeared by accident. Inside the temporary FBI field office, Caldwell spread out the passenger manifests, witness statements, and recovered objects. The briefcase of the tall man, retrieved from a nearby storage shed, sat heavily on the table. Its leather worn, its contents unknown. Henry ran his hands over it, sensing the weight of secrets it held. Scene 1, the survivors' accounts. He began interviewing passengers who claimed to have memories of the train, memories that did not match official records. Mrs. Langley, a middle-aged schoolteacher. I remember stepping onto the train, but I wasn't there. And yet, I remember seeing myself in the aisle. Young Timothy Hayes. I dreamed about a man in a gray coat. He wasn't on the train manifest. I think he watched us. Henry scribbled notes. Each story contradicted the other, yet shared subtle similarities. Names, gestures, faint descriptions of faces. They were fragments of something bigger, a puzzle deliberately scrambled. Scene 2, the mysterious man. The tall man with the briefcase had no record, no history, no past. Every check in the national database returned nothing. Henry called him Subject X in his notes. Subject X had boarded the train without tickets, without identification, yet somehow knew the schedule, the crew, even the hidden back corridors of the carriages. Caldwell stared at the photos. The man's eyes, cold and calculating, seemed to follow him even in print. Something about him was wrong. He exuded presence, yet existed nowhere. Scene 3, hidden patterns. Late at night, Henry pored over the passenger logs again. He began noticing patterns. Names repeated across manifests, slight variations in spelling. Birth dates didn't exist. Occupations conflicted with public records. It's as if someone created them, he muttered to himself. He ran background checks, surveillance logs, and local census data. The missing passengers didn't exist before that night, and yet they had lived full lives in some parallel record. Documents, photographs, letters, but none verifiable. Scene 4, the conductor speaks. Conductor Miller, shaken and pale, recounted the night again. I remember seeing them, stepping aboard, but the carriages, they shifted. The aisles changed. I swear, one moment the children were at the front, next at the rear. I don't understand it. Henry listened carefully. The testimony suggested a manipulation of space or perception, subtle enough for disbelief, strong enough to unsettle memory. Scene 5, the cabin discovery. Following leads, Henry and a small FBI team discovered an abandoned cabin along the old tracks. Inside, they found maps, diagrams, and cryptic notes in Subject X's handwriting. Lines connecting passengers, numbers that didn't make sense, and annotations. Memory imprinting complete. Observation ongoing. Henry felt a chill. This was no ordinary disappearance. Project Veil, a name whispered in classified circles, began to form in his mind. He realized that the train's passengers were not just missing. They had been reconstructed, observed, and perhaps manipulated. Henry interviewed the remaining passengers. Anxiety, disorientation, and déjà vu plagued them. Some claimed to recall lives they never lived. One woman, eyes wide with fear, whispered, I dreamt of a child I never had, in a room I've never seen, and yet it felt real. Henry documented every account. Each narrative overlapped yet diverged. Reality, perception, and memory seemed entangled in a deliberate design. Scene 7, the cliffhanger. Weeks later, a cryptic message arrived at the field office. No signature, no return address. Only 3 lines typed in black ink. You seek them. They have no past. They wait where time bends. Henry stared at the paper. Outside, the wind howled along the abandoned tracks. The cold air carried whispers that only he seemed to hear. And in the back of his mind, he knew the tall man with the briefcase. Subject X was watching. The train had vanished once. The passengers were shadows with no past. And the mystery of Northland Express was far from over. Scene 7, the cliffhanger. Weeks later, a cryptic message arrived at the field office. No signature, no return address. Only 3 lines typed in black ink. You seek them. They have no past. They wait where time bends. Henry stared at the paper. Outside, the wind howled along the abandoned tracks. The cold air carried whispers that only he seemed to hear. And in the back of his mind, he knew the tall man with the briefcase. Subject X was watching. The train had vanished once. The passengers were shadows with no past. And the mystery of Northland Express was far from over.